This is what I was able to get with just a few days of semi-regular and fairly passive fish trap usage. In the June 2024 update, fishing was changed, and these changes were also brought to fish traps, though with a 50% chance for bait to be stolen. The end result of these changes make fish trap bases viable again, and great for people who don't enjoy actively fishing, but it works in some pretty weird ways. Right now, various food items have a bait level and a stack size. Using grubs as an example, they are a level 3.5 bait and can stack up to 3 times. This means 3 grubs act as a level 10.5 bait. A level 10.5 bait will guarantee one of the better fish you can get from a fish trap. If you're on the ocean, this means a salmon or a small trout. If you recall from fishing, 2 salmon can be traded for 55 scrap, or they can be gutted for a decent amount of meat, animal fat, and some other items including a chance at a blue card. A fish trap base is mainly aimed at generating as much salmon as possible for scrap trade-in, but if you have no source for blue cards and plan on using them, gutting salmon is good value too. You want to fill your traps with bait that's higher than level 5 so you avoid most of the lower value fish. This bait includes grubs, worms, raw bear and wolf meat, and then trout and perch. I estimate these high level baits are worth about 10 scrap, even after factoring in the chance of failure. This means a bear is worth almost 200 scrap. Fish traps trigger roughly every minute, so if you can keep up with the bait, that means a single fish trap with the highest bait can generate about 600 scrap per hour. But you need to interact with the trap whenever it succeeds to reset it, so it would take some maintenance. Plus, traps take 10 damage when they catch something and regenerate very slowly, so you'll need to repair them. Overall, it's better to have multiple traps working instead of just trying to keep one active. And a quick side note, even with the 50% chance of failure, you should still refish a trout into salmon because 1 salmon is worth more than 2 trout. Then you have level 5 bait, which will catch lower value fish, but is overall still pretty good, with an estimated value of about 5 scrap and up to 300 scrap per hour in 1 trap. Level 5 bait includes raw pork, chicken, deer, and horse, and somewhat interestingly, berries, as they're level 1 but can stack up to 5 times. It's definitely worth putting this stuff in traps, and while it's not anything crazy, it's still valuable, safe, and passive. For reference, a 16 planter batch of berries converts to about 800 scrap after running all the berries, grubs, and worms through fish traps. That's about 5 scrap per planter slot, which is lower than the 8 scrap per slot you get growing cloth and trading it in. But the cloth vendor is also the fertilizer vendor, which is a huge pain in the butt to trade in as you'll compete with other people and the vendor has a low scrap wallet, unlike the fishing village vending machine, which has very deep pockets. Then lastly, you have level 3 bait, which doesn't pick up garbage but also can't pick up the highest value fish either. It's worth a meager 2 scrap, but the level 3 bait is raw human meat, meaning technically you can respawn in your own base over and over, get 5 raw human meat, some bones, some animal fat, and then trade that human meat into some fish. And don't forget, you get more animal fat the longer your player has survived. I wouldn't say it's worth the time, but it is doable for that one freaky teammate who just can't help themselves. I'd also mention that the lower quality fish are a bait level 2, and while they can stack up to level 4, I don't think they're worth putting into fish traps and you should just gut them. But now we can get into some really interesting loops you can create with these new fish traps. Grubs and worms are top tier bait, and you get them from harvesting plants. But now you can also compost bones that you may get from gutting fish or chopping human bodies and turn it into fertilizer to put back into your planters. Historically, running a 100% conditioned farm was pretty challenging because you had to manage the water level. But after a change in the sprinkler system, 4 planters with hemp god clones in them consume about the same amount of water that's input by 1 sprinkler. It's the same with 5 planters and a godberry clone. You just need to add a fluid switch to your setup and only have it running when your plants are growing. This means your planters can create bait for your fish traps to generate scrap, meat, animal fat, bones, and even blue cards, but then those bones can generate fertilizer to run your planters at a higher condition. For this reason, I think hybrid fish trap grow bases can be incredibly valuable. It's not the most overpowered scrap generator, but it's simple, safe, and mostly passive. The worst part is just building the base. Going back to what I showed at the beginning, this came from a 4x4 with 16 fish traps and 16 planters, though I didn't actually even finish all the planters. I mostly filled the traps with things I otherwise would have gotten, but I did pay extra attention to chop bodies, run with a nail gun to get every animal I saw, and I did eventually put 1 batch of berries through. So with a minor extra focus on gathering meat and some simple maintenance on the traps, I was able to generate over a row of scrap. You could increase your scrap output by actually fishing the higher level bait into salmon or small sharks, avoiding the 50% chance of failure. though this may require a second fishing base or an extension to your grow base because while you can leave some foundations out for fishing, you do need to be in deep water to catch the good fish. And this highlights why I really enjoy this change. You can commit to it at various levels. It's well worth it to toss stuff into fish traps placed in your compound, but it's also worth it to build your own base or even actively fish, depending on what you personally want to do. I also think we're still in the early days of rediscovering what this change to fishing means, so let me know what you've been doing with it, and subscribe if you want more fishing videos because I have a few more things planned. I hope this has been helpful, and thank you for watching.